If we don't gather, how do we do that? I don't have a clue. Unless we gather together. Feel that? You know, somehow we've come to believe that our purpose on life is to get comfortable and avoid pain. How many of you have been successful at avoiding pain? Entirely. There is a thing called necessary suffering. There's a thing called unnecessary suffering. We want to remove ourselves from unnecessary suffering. If there's pain, as Jesus experienced, to transform the world, then so be it. But we must come together as a collective consciousness, as souls pivoting to God. Collective consciousness, race consciousness, is a group of people that are living in the world, but not really experiencing any spiritual dynamics in the world. I'll give you an example. I lived a time in Detroit. Anybody been to the Detroit area? Yeah. How many of you saw Gran Torino? Clint Eastwood movie. You guys don't go there you go. I've got somebody. I'm going to talk to you. End of the movie. The little kid, the young man, gets the car in his will, right? And he's driving down the road, and it's a road around Lake St. Clair, which is a road that feeds the Great Lake. And he's driving through what's called Grosse Pointe. Interesting name for all the rich people live. It's an area in Detroit along the river where all the rich people, all the old money, mansions, gorgeous homes. And he's driving that Torino along that road. If you follow that road, you'll come up eventually to a stop sign. And at the stop sign, make it a stop light. And there is behind you is all the wealth of Detroit, all the old money, all the wealth of Detroit behind you. When you cross the street and go 20 feet and cross the median, you run into an area with a consciousness that will hurt you, where the bars are at, and people are shooting people over there, and the bullets are traveling, and you can feel this. Have you experienced that before? You feel that energy as you cross the street, that quick, that wall of energy. The difference between this and that within a matter of feet, it's called race consciousness. And over here we have the people who believe in this way of being, and over here we have a people who believe in this way of being. And then we have the race consciousness of our community at large, and there's communities and areas, and you've driven through them sometimes to get to where you want to go, and you think to yourself, I just hope I can get through this area alive. I went into an area like that one time, and I traveled into that area, and it was at 3 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon. And I noticed there was bars, and it looked like gangs meeting on the corners. And I come around the corner, and I was trying to find, before GPS, I was trying to find a new church that had started in the Detroit area. And I noticed an armed police officer standing on the corner like this, right in front of the church. And he saw me slowing down, and he kind of came up to the corner and tapped on my glass, and I rolled down the window. He said, are you looking to come to this church, this Unity Church? And I said, I am. He said, why don't you park that car right here? I'll keep car right there. I'll keep a good eye on it. Right there in the midst of, there's a consciousness. It can be a violent consciousness, or you can choose, because the soul pivots, to pivot to the Spirit of God. You can choose to allow your soul to soar to new heights, to soar like eagles, if you choose. But there's, even in the story of the eagles that soar, don't you like just to try putting your hands out without hurting your neighbor? It feels good, doesn't it? Just to think that you can fly to new consciousness, to new awareness, that you have everything that you need to move forward, that God will support you with the wind and the universe, and just to soar through. When an eagle decides that it's time to have the babies are going to come, the egg time is coming, the eagles, the mom and the dad, work really hard way up high in those rocks or those high trees to build that nest. And some of the eagles build a nest that weighs a ton. And they work hard to build that nest because they know the young is coming. And they put those sticks and those branches, those hard branches, they build the base. And then what they do is they start gathering up moss, and they'll softening it a little bit. And then they take the hides from the rabbits and the game that they've eaten, and they lay the hides down. They even pick feathers off their own body, soften it down. She lays her eggs. And once the eaglets are hatched, the minute they're hatched, they're a hungry critter. The minute they're hatched, they're going feed me. And that's what they do, just like teenagers. Feed me, because they haven't figured out who they are, most of them. Feed me. And mom and dad fly day and night, giving them food, feed them constantly. Now they get to a certain size, and they fill that nest. Do you know what mom and dad do? And they love their babies just like we love ours. They start removing the soft stuff. They take out the feathers, they take out the hides, they take out the moss, and the only thing left is all that hard, spokey sticks and twigs and vine, whatever it is, sticking up at them. And before that, they didn't even stand up. They were just feeding them. And they had to get up, and they had to move like this. Ow, ooh, ow, ow, ooh. And they're thinking, they don't love us anymore. Look what they've done. They've taken away our free ride here. The next thing you know, they kind of stop bringing the food, and they're doing this the whole time, madder than you can imagine. Then they have to get up on the edge of the nest because it's the only place they can walk, and then they have to start doing this to keep from falling. Get the drift? And there comes a time when the mom either picks them up or boats them out, and they fall. Dad is already out there soaring. Whew, how they look so majestic, soaring. And if they don't fly, he comes down, scoops them up, and brings them back. And they do that until they fly. There's going to be that one time when they just do this as they're falling, and the wind picks them and takes them, and they soar. But they had to get uncomfortable first. Am I right? Otherwise, they're still sitting there going, feed me, feed me, feed me. And we're going to soar yet. So the love of the parent makes the bird uncomfortable, because we know that sometimes being uncomfortable will cause you to look elsewhere. And so as our soul has turned to the outer world, and we thought that our lives were about, more stuff, more things, more this, more that, we've spent our time out here, is that sometimes what happens, by the grace of God, our lives get uncomfortable. And we find ourselves trying to be in these spots that, ouch, and then all of a sudden we have to what? We have to look elsewhere. And then eventually the universe will throw you out there, and you get to soar. And then you lay your wings out. The bald eagle was considered our national symbol. It was in June of 1782 when they decided. Now, Benjamin Franklin was probably one of the smartest men that ever lived in our country, and maybe in the world. He was against the bald eagle being our national symbol, because the bald eagle, being smart, they would, and being bigger than the Hawks, the Seahawks, not the football team, the Seahawks would come down and they would grab the bird, the fish. They were fish eaters. They'd come down and they would grab the fish out of the water, and as soon as they got the fish out and started moving, the eagles would come and take it from them. And he watched that behavior and said, well, that doesn't represent this country. So he said, why don't we make the turkey our national bird? Oh my. I'm glad it's the eagle. And they're not bald, they got white hair on top, just like most of us. And so these birds, it was chosen because they represent strength, and they're majestic, and they take flight. And they can overcome any obstacle that comes their way. And they also have a tendency to live a long time if left alone. They live a long time. So the message really to you today is that idea that our work has just begun. And I want to get you into that framework of you choose, which way you choose to pivot your identity, your soul. It's your makeup. It's all the life experiences you've ever had. It's just who you are, the uniqueness of you, what your gifts are. But you choose whether you want to spend all of that in the outer world, or if you can take the first step is to pivot your soul into the Spirit of God and align yourself with the purpose that God has in store for you. And so I encourage you to take that first step and rest in God and transform into the what you thought you were supposed to do into what God would have you do. You have the power to choose. It's up to you how you want to live your life. And I encourage you is to come together with like-minded people. We have been in kind of an implosion at the church, and things have happened, and some people have left, some people have settled back, and now we're at this place of new beginnings. And so we get to make a decision as we join with our souls and our hearts and turn to God. I mean, we can have all the greatest leadership in the world here. You can have all the greatest visions and strategic plans and all those things in place. But the missing part can be the Spirit of God guiding it. Otherwise it becomes a push. But the three-legged stool is to have the leadership and to have the strategic plan in place, but then allowing the presence of God coming through our souls, uniting together as one to make a difference in the world. And in order to do that, we have to gather together to build consciousness. It is the soul of the whole of the universe, our connectedness with all people. One is not the loneliest number in the world. It is the greatest number in the world, because this allows us an opportunity to know we are always connected to one another into the Spirit of God within us. And so it is, and so it shall be done. God bless you. Thanks.